I'm going to start on Module 13, page 30. So let's review some of the stuff that we went over before. So the pages, we call this X, the price was called Y. Prediction was based on the equation, so Y hat equals 147.6075 for this one. There was no place to plug in the X, so it would be 147.6075 throughout. So this would be the predicted price. The error is Y minus the Y hat, so it's a price minus a prediction. So for the first one, it was 118.95 minus 147.6075. So that gives me a negative 28.6575. Absolute value of error is we take the error, which was Y minus Y hat, we put the absolute signs around it, meaning we're going to make any negative a positive, any positive is going to stay a positive. So negative 28.6575 becomes 28.6575. So basically we just drop the negative. To find the error squared, what we do is we take the error column and we square it. So we take that negative 28.6575 and we square this, so we get 821.2523. So when you put it into the calculator, remember to put parentheses. So we're going to do, again, negative 28.6575, close the parentheses, and you square, and that's going to give me the positive of 821.2523. Make sure that you use the rounding rules. So if we do that for the rest of them, let's go ahead and go over the error squared since we already did the rest of these in class. So we're going to take the error for the 730, which is 1.4925, and we're going to square this. Then we're going to take the 18.5425 and we're going to square this, and we're going to do the same throughout all of the numbers. So we're going to take 1.4925, close the parentheses, and we're going to square, and this is going to give us 2.2276. So again, make sure that you use the rounding rules. There's a 5 after the 5, so this 5 is going to become a 6. So for the next one, 18.5425 squared is going to give me back 343.8243. The next one is going to be 43.3425 squared, and we're going to get back 1,878.5723. For the next one, we're going to take 3.0625, we're going to square this, and it's going to give me back 9.3789. For the next one, 34.3425, we're going to square that quantity, and it's going to give us 1,179.4073, and the last one is 3.0625, and we're going to square this. So it's going to give us back a 9.3789. So we're going to go ahead and do the same thing for line B and also for line C. Remember that for line B we made some corrections. So for line B, you should have a prediction of 167.87, 172.582. So you would have gotten this in an email, these solutions. And then the error again is going to be the Y value minus the Y hat, and in this case the Y is the price, the Y hat is a prediction. So we take 118.95 minus 167.87, and it's going to give us negative 48.92. Absolute value, just like before, we drop any negatives that we see under the error, and we get 48.92 for the first one. Error squared, just like we did on the previous example, we're going to take the 48.92 and we're going to square it. So if we square 48.92, it gives us 2,393.1664. So these answers that I have on this worksheet are the exact ones by using Excel. So when you do it by hand, you might get numbers that are a little bit different, but that's okay. So they should be fairly similar to these numbers. So that's what we would do for line B. We would take all of these absolute values, and all of these errors, and we would square them. And then for line C, we would take all of these errors and we would square them here as well. Make sure that you guys made the corrections for prediction B, for the error absolute value, and the error squared. So to do that, you might want to take a look at the solutions that I sent you guys under prediction for B. Now for the next page, what we're going to do is we're going to figure out which of the three lines is actually better. In order to determine which line is better, we need to find the sum squared of the errors. So S represents the sum, and the second S is squared, and the E represents errors. So sum squared of the error just means that I'm going to add the errors squared. What that means is we're going to take the sum of the errors, that was y minus the y hat, and squared. So what this tells me again is to take this column, the y minus y hat squared, and we're going to go ahead and add it up. So we would go to the last column, which is the errors squared column, and we would add up this whole column. So we would end up taking 821.2523, and then we're going to add 18.8573 plus 655.7441, and so on until you get to the very last number. So if we add up all of these numbers, we're going to get sum of that column, which is y minus the y hat squared, is equal to 7,275.7566. And we're going to do that for each of the line A, line B, and line C. If you ended up adding all of these numbers by hand again, you might get something a little bit different on these very last two numbers. So if I ended up adding the errors squared for line B, the sum of the y minus the y hat squared for line B is equal to 42,277.0455. And for line C, we're going to do the same thing. Once we find all of these errors squared, we're going to take them and add them up. So the sum of the errors squared, remember that error is y minus y hat, squared is you just square this, and this is equal to 4,458.5762. We're going to take each of these, write them under the corresponding section on the next page. So we're going to fill in this table with the errors squared, or the sum of the errors squared. For line A, it was 7,275.7566. For line B, it was 42,277.0455, and for line C it was 4,458.5762. Now in order to determine which one's the best line, we're going to use the smallest of the errors squared. So the smallest of the errors squared is going to be line C, which means that line C is the one that's the best prediction line. So it's the best one for the data that was given to us. And you're going to do the same thing for the homework assignment. So on the homework assignment, you're going to go ahead and find line A prediction. So in order to find the line A prediction, we're going to use y hat equals 29.45 plus 0.78 times x, where x is the years after 1998. So this first column is x, the second column is y, and the third column is a prediction, which is y hat. Depending on which line you're making the prediction for is the equation that you're going to use. The error is going to be y minus the y hat. So you're going to take the y value, 29.92, subtract off the prediction that you get after you plug in the 0 into the x, so that gives me a 29.45. So 29.92 minus 29.45 is going to give you the error. Once you find the error, you're going to take the absolute value of the error. So the equation for this one is y minus the y hat absolute value of that. So if you had a negative here, you're going to drop the negative, make it a positive. If you had a positive here, you're just going to copy the positive down. For the error squared, we're going to take the column that says error, and we're going to take y minus the y hat and square it. So whatever number you have here, you're going to square it and write it down in this column. Then what you're going to do is the same thing for line B. So on line B, you're going to find the prediction based on the equation. For line B, you're going to find the error, which means you take the y minus the y hat. So associate degree value minus a prediction, and then absolute value of error, you drop the negative. Error squared, you square the error column, and then you want to determine the best line of fit by adding the error squared. So basically out of the last column, and then figure out which one's the smallest number.